Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for July 21st, 2020. Thank you for masking up appropriately. Save a business, save a life, and be responsible. Thank you. By way of introduction, I'm John Hutchings. I'm the chair of the board, and also present is Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser, Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Romero Chavez. I see we have Dr. Dimiana Abdelmalek, or Dr. A, County Health Officer on, as well as Director of Public Health and Social Services, Shelley Slaughter. Romero, am I missing anybody else? Those are the only people I see.
Yeah, we have online Kurt Harding, Keely Murno, Brian Meyer, Jacinda Stilgis, Mark Muffett, Carrie Hennon, Tim Wilson, and Elizabeth Petridge.
Wow, great. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us.
And Jeremy Davis just joined as well.
Good job, Jeremy. So for the public's consumption, if you would like to join via conference call, the phone number is 360-252-9020, and your PIN is 1234. And you're welcome to join in and listen in that fashion. We're going to begin with the COVID-19 update. And I'll start with Shelley, I imagine.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I will start, as usual, by sharing the latest data, and then Dr. Abdelmalek will share some more information that she has. So as of yesterday, statewide data indicates 47,743 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 1,453 deaths. The greatest increase statewide in new cases has been among the demographic of 20 to 29-year-olds, and we see statewide that transmission continues to grow in virtually every single county across the state. Here in Thurston County, as of yesterday, we have 495 confirmed COVID-19 cases since this outbreak began. Unfortunately, 5 deaths. We've had no new deaths recently. 43 of those cases have ever been hospitalized. In the last week, there have been 4 Thurston County residents hospitalized. In our local hospitals, which serve as a regional hub, there are currently 13 COVID-19 patients hospitalized, with 4 of those patients on ventilators. Last week, I was asked the number of hospitalized patients ever, how many of those had underlying conditions, and I did want to just share a correction that the appropriate number, or rather accurate number, is that there were 58% of hospitalized patients since the beginning of COVID-19 in Thurston County that reported to us that they had underlying conditions. During the past week, in terms of testing, we have 19,136 tests, with overall, since the beginning, 2% of those have been positive. However, in the last week, we have seen the percent positivity raise to 4.9% in the last 7 days. So that continues to be a concern. And with that, I will pass it to Dr. Abdelmalek for any further information.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Doctor.
I wanted to share with you some of the trends that I've been seeing when reviewing individual cases. We're still seeing that travel is contributing significantly to cases here in Thurston County. So people traveling outside the state of Washington into areas harder hit by COVID-19 within the state. We're continuing to see that there are clusters. These clusters are often household clusters, meaning that once one person in a household contracts COVID-19, other family members also get sick. We are also seeing spread within family and friend groups through informal gatherings. We would also just like to talk a little bit about what people should be doing once they make the decision, or once the decision is made to get tested. People who need to be tested are people who are symptomatic with COVID-19, or who had close contact, meaning being within 6 feet of a person with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 for 15 or more minutes. When people go to get tested, we would just like to remind them that they'll need to stay home, even during the period between when they get tested and when they get their test results. We would also like to remind all contacts that they would need, all confirmed contacts, that they'll need to stay home for 14 days regardless of test results. And all cases that they'll need to follow CDC guidelines and isolate for 10 days and until they're fever-free for 24 hours, which is a change in CDC guidance without the use of anti-fever medications. So in our area, cases do continue to rise, and we are reaching out and counting on our public to help us work towards mitigating the spread.
Thank you. I have a question right up front. Shelley, you gave the average age throughout the state is between 20 and 29. What is it for Thurston County?
That is the fastest growing increase in one demographic statewide, and I can pull that up for you in just a moment, or share that with you after this meeting. I don't have that exact demographic report in front of me right now.
That's fine. I would imagine it's going to be pretty much the same, but I just wanted to hear the difference. Thank you.
It is also available on our website for anyone in the public who may be interested in taking a look at that.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions for Shelley or Dr. A? Commissioner Edwards.
This might be a question for our doctor. Are we doing any testing for people that possibly have had this and have antibodies? I hear there's still a request out for people to donate blood if they've had it and recovered, and that would be beneficial to other folks. But I'm wondering, how do they know that they actually had it unless they did get a prior diagnostic test? And then who would they contact if they wanted to help others?
That's an excellent question. The donation of plasma with antibodies present is an incredible way that people can help people suffering from COVID-19. There is antibody testing being done, I know, through the University of Washington, and I'll check with our local partners to see where it's happening in our county. While antibody testing doesn't tell us, there are a lot of things it doesn't tell us. It does not tell us whether or not you're immune to COVID-19. And we don't know how long antibodies last after infection. So those are two key things. And it also doesn't tell us whether or not that person is actively infectious. So antibody testing alone won't be able to answer those questions. It will be able to answer exactly the question that you asked, which is whether there may be benefit to donating plasma from that individual to help other individuals. And we'll get back to you on the specifics of how that process works in our county with our local partners.
At some point, and I know you communicate regularly with the community through news releases, and I appreciate that very much. Could we somehow include a telephone number so people that have a desire to help will know who to at least call and get direction to participate in helping. Is that possible?
Yes, I would be happy to do that, Commissioner.
Okay. And maybe Shelley, you might know the answer to this. In that age group of 20 to 29, what kind of symptoms are we seeing with those individuals? Is it pretty light, or some very serious, the majority very serious? I'm just kind of curious what's going on with that group.
I'll actually have Dr. Abdelmalik answer that, but I will share that I was able to pull up that data report, and 20% of our cases are in that 20 to 29 age group.
Okay.
20%.
Anything about the symptoms?
Okay, how about on your tracing, are you still finding that nobody's admitting to being involved in protest, but I don't know, we catch it in church, but not at a protest? Is that the way it's kind of going so far?
That's right, Commissioner. Nobody has really discussed being involved in a protest.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
How about
Commissioner
that symptoms where we're gonna get, Shelley, were you gonna answer kind of the symptoms? You said 20% are in that demographic. I'm just curious about the type of symptoms that our folks have.
Dr. Abdelmalik.
So we're seeing a lot of people presenting with cough and sore throat being kind of the big ones, like an upper respiratory illness. A smaller number of people progress to severe shortness of breath, so feeling winded, when they're, walking even short distances despite being previously healthy. So those are the most common things. We are also seeing some folks with GI symptoms, so specifically diarrhea, less so nausea and vomiting. So that's kind of, so there's still a broad array of symptoms that we're seeing, but the most common ones are cough, sore throat, feeling kind of fatigued and achy, with some people having severe chest discomfort and shortness of breath.
Do all of the folks end up losing their smell and taste?
So no, that's actually, so while that specific finding is thought to be pretty sensitive for COVID-19, as there are very few other upper respiratory illnesses that do that without congestion, without sinus congestion, it's only a small number of patients that have that, certainly not the majority.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer.
Thanks. So yesterday I sat on maybe you guys did too, but I sat on the governor's and Secretary of Health's call for the county and city officials. It was pretty informative because they walked us through with the IDM, the Institute for Disease Modeling folks walked us through the latest and greatest data. As to Commissioner Edwards' point about somebody asked about reinfection, and they really said they just don't know yet. The CDC is apparently has pulled a group of people together that they think got reinfected, and they're trying to figure out what's going on there. But the real concern about it, that they articulated, was its connection to the potential effectiveness of a vaccine. So that's concerning to me, to see how that plays out. A couple other interesting points I thought that I would share. One is that they said that 30 to 50%, it's kind of a wide range, but it's in a significant range of cases are transmitted by asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic carriers. And I bring that up just because somebody was criticizing me on Facebook for wearing a mask while not having symptoms, saying I was being political and not a good leader. And that data kind of, I think, shoots that down. It's obvious to most of us that, masking helps. Another, masking for anyone, whether they have symptoms or not. And then the other really important takeaway I had from that meeting was the masking, the critical effectiveness of masking comes from its universality. And they said, getting your population from 30% to 60% of masking isn't really doing too much for you, but getting from 60 to 90% is like, that's the critical. That's where you basically snuff it out without, you don't need 100% necessarily, but you do need to get close. And it's that last chunk that really starts to have its greatest effectiveness. So I wanted to say all that, and then also wanted to ask a question. I understand from Shelley and others that there's kind of a backlog within, kind of nationally, with labs and the reagents that they need, and the testing results are coming back slower than they did before. And I'm just wondering if, not knowing how the system works and how the labs, who sets policy for the labs, is there any way or any thought or system for prioritizing, essential workers, healthcare workers, other frontline workers that we want to get back to work? Is that any part of the testing priority system, or is it just a first come, first serve, you're in a line type of a system to deal with the fact that it's such a backlog?
Commissioner Menzer, you are absolutely correct that we have seen testing lags here in Thurston County. That lag has to do with the laboratory capacity to process those tests primarily, as well as we're seeing some strain on the supply chain for testing supplies, as you mentioned. Early on, there was priority criteria set for essential healthcare workers and other essential workers. When testing was very limited, I think that may be in the works again if we continue to see these kind of delays in people able to get their test results. So this is, like you said, a state and national problem, something that we're all looking into and trying to figure out how we can increase the lab processing times.
I know you guys sit on a lot of boards or in committees and meetings, and if you get a chance to advocate for that, I would encourage it, because if a healthcare worker has to wait 2 weeks to find out, that's just affecting our healthcare capacity, and it's just affecting the whole community in a way that seems unnecessary. And it sounds like early on they were able to do that, so they should be able to figure that out now. Thank you.
One final question. Commissioner Edwards asked if there was a number that folks could readily call, and is that the number on the back of this COVID update? It's 360-867-2500. Is that the one the public should call?
That is our Thurston County Public Health main number.
Mm-hmm.
And members of the public can certainly call our department if they have specific questions. There is also a state hotline that is available for the public, and people may have quicker access on that statewide number, and that's available on the DOH website. And for those that are interested in donating blood, in connection with Commissioner Edwards' earlier question, contacting Northwest Blood Works about how they may do that, because not only is there research happening regarding plasma donations, there's critical shortages of blood in our area. So blood donations are needed.
And so for the public consumption, the additional information or data regarding COVID-19 contact, the state number is 711 or 800-833-6338. So there's two numbers. It's actually three. All right, no other questions? And thank you, Dr. A. Thank you, Shelley, very much for joining us today. Thank you.
I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Romero. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'd just like to follow up to the Commissioner Menzer. Most of us attended the yet another Zoom meeting, in this case with the governor yesterday, and the Institute of Disease Modeling provided a chart that it was very telling for me. And it was a chart of all the different counties and how we have seen the increase of cases per county. But it was one particular chart. It was Yakima County. That really captured my attention. In terms of Yakima County had a mandatory masking 3 weeks prior to the governor issuing a mandatory masking across the state. And the curve is dropping dramatically in Yakima County. So, and I think the numbers don't lie on those terms. So that was very telling for me how important, how efficient this little effort that all of us do to wear a mask, to start making a difference, to be part of the solution. That's all I have to say.
That chart, Ramiro, that chart was so revealing to me that I took a picture of it. And there it is.
You got it.
That shows that's the Thurston County case, and it just, it's just not a good chart. But all the counties in Washington are facing some variant, especially the larger ones. So,
right.
Thank you for that information. That was a very good.
Hutch, could I get one more question in, please?
Yeah, let me just finish up. That was a very good Zoom that we had yesterday with the governor and the Secretary of Health and Department Director of the Health, State Director. Very, very fascinating data, very in-depth. And so the bottom line was, no, never mind. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess I appreciate getting these numbers out to the public, but we don't have that big of a viewership here watching our meetings. And I wonder if either Shelley or Dr. A would be able to at least furnish numbers about certain topics that they might comment on for the public in the articles, because I know those articles are really read a lot. I mean, I have people tell me all the time that they appreciate the information they get from our staff about this issue. And so I think anytime we can give the public just a little more information, let them know how they can be part of the solution as well, I think it's worth it. So if we could share those numbers with the public in a better forum than here verbally, if we could get that in print somehow.
Okay. All right. Thank you both very much for your leadership help in this pandemic. So we're going to move on with to the homeless strategies. And is Keely? Oh, there's Keely Marino there. Go ahead, Keely, please.
All right. Good morning, Keely Marino with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. Happy Tuesday morning. Just a few updates. We have increased our testing to 3 testing events to 3 per week. We have one today at 2828 Martin Way. And then on Wednesday, we have a testing event on Ensign Road from 1 to 3, and on Thursday at Union Gospel Mission from 1 to 3. We have had a number of people in our quarantine and isolation facility. We've had, over the weekend, we had 5. Now we're down to 3. The word is getting out about how it works. We had individuals showing up to testing events on Thursday prepared with their art supplies and 3 days extra coffee pots and extra clothes. So people are cluing into how that all works. And we had a lot of cooperation and collaboration with Rosie's Place at Community Youth Services too, just really making sure that their young people are getting access to testing and access to the quarantine and isolation facility, which is great. We in the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention have decided on 2 projects to move forward with our shelter program grant, which is coming through the Department of Commerce. Again, that is the grant that is intended to increase shelter bed capacity in counties across Washington state. It's formulaic, it's not competitive. So we will be receiving about $1.5 million over the next 3 years to increase our shelter bed capacity. And we've decided that we will be moving forward with Family Support Center, increasing their capacity in a separate building from Pear Blossom Place to the tune of 10 beds. And then also a project that Interfaith Works is working on we're very excited to be moving forward with those two projects. The application is due on the 31st of July. So we'll be finalizing that application and sending it in presently. I know that there's a lot of attention right now on Deschutes Parkway. So on Friday, as I sent an email out to you all, that I met with Just Housing Olympia, and actually just the one of the property owners who has been meeting weekly with the attorney from Northwest Justice Project, Just Housing, the city, and myself. We had a really brief conversation and just basically made a plan to attend the noticing yesterday morning. So myself and Ty Gundel from Just Housing Olympia and another Just Housing Olympia volunteer met with that property owner. He had created some notices on his own accord, and we met with some of the folks from the encampment, and one of their key players there participated in handing out those notices. And so we talked with those individuals there. There are fewer tents perhaps than there were a couple weeks ago, but there's still easily 50 to 70 people that are there. The actual eviction date is the morning of the 23rd, which is this Thursday. I intend to be there throughout the day to provide any kind of support. We met, Teal Russell from City of Olympia met with me last Wednesday to discuss potential solutions for storage of items. We were unable to identify a project that would be able to accommodate or store the belongings of those individuals after they are removed from that area. Outside of potentially Union Gospel Mission might have spaces for 5 to 10 people worth of stuff. So we're still working on that. So at the minimum, we have an idea of where people can store their belongings, if not a place to move onto. So that is, I believe, my report.
Keely, you talked about testing, different testing sites. What are we doing for South County? Yelm, Rainier, Tenino, Bucota, Grand Mountain, Rainier. Why are we hitting South County at all, giving them a shot at Rochester, giving them a shot at testing?
That's a really good question, Commissioner Hutchings. No, we have not moved south into the South counties, but I see Director Slaughter has popped back on, so perhaps she has.
Yeah, Shelley, go ahead.
Yes, we are currently working on expanding testing in other areas of Thurston County, including Yelm, Tenino, Rainier, Bucota, Rochester, through partnerships with Valley View Health Centers and potentially Timberland Regional Library. So that's something that is in the works and part of our testing efforts.
Well, in the works doesn't tell me much. How soon are we going to be getting down there to help those folks out?
I don't have an exact date yet, but we are we have an agreement in place with Valley View Health Center, and we're just in the process of trying to identify sites and outreach methods for that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I just want people to know that you're working on it and we're getting down there, and hopefully sooner than later.
Yes,
right.
In the meanwhile, the Hawks Prairie drive-through site is available, and that is a partnership between Public Health and Providence Health and Services that is available for anyone to come and get free testing throughout Thurston County.
All right, thank you. Commissioners? No. Romero, anything?
No, sir, thank you.
Oh. And how close are we, I'm going to guess a month or two from the ILA being signed with the RHC? That's
Correct.
A local agreement with the Regional Housing Council.
Yes, so we, the Regional Housing Council met last Thursday evening, and we discussed the final draft of the interlocal agreement, and it is moving forward into the respective jurisdictions in order for legal and elected officials to approve moving forward on that ILA. So we hope to have that, best hope is by August to have the ILA signed.
That's the best hope, but I would think that it's being vetted by each jurisdiction's lawyers.
Correct.
And if there's any change, it has to come back before the council again for another final draft, and then get back to signing. And many of the smaller jurisdictions, they don't meet in August perhaps. And so it'll hopefully by at least September. I would love to count on the end of August, but I'm not sure it'll happen that quickly. But thank you. Commissioner Menser?
Yeah, since you brought that up, the ILA has been worked on, and it sounds like it's close. The RHC still meets though and addresses issues. And for me, part of the reason to form the RHC was to deal with these kind of situations, and I'm referring to Deschutes Parkway. When there's a region-wide issue of concern, we've got a strike force, so to speak, strike team of leaders from the different jurisdictions to come up with a plan or a recommendation. So if the RHC brings a recommendation forth, sends it my way, I'm going to rely pretty heavily on that as the right way to approach these difficult problems, because that's why we formed the group. So just letting folks know, I'm not trying to shove it off to the RHC, but just let people know that, or at least from my perspective, that was why I strongly supported the formation of the RHC and the ILA, so that we have this group available to work together and come up with collaborative solutions that wouldn't otherwise be able to be done. It's very difficult when, if something requires Lacey, Olympia, and Thurston County, and if it's got an emergent nature to it, it's just great to have these relationships already formed and this conversation already started, and the technical expertise like yourself, Keely, already there, and your equivalents from the cities to just come up with a good set of recommendations. So I look forward to anything you guys might cook up with respect to how we deal with these 50 to 70 folks that may get displaced. Because I do want to take action to address it in some way.
No response?
As a follow-up to that, and maybe as a follow-up to last week, comments related to the many emails the board has received related to the Deschutes eviction notices to the encampment. Keely and Tom drafted a response. We have reviewed that response, and we already start responding to all those emails, which addresses the Regional Housing Council within that response as to one of the strategies in the groups that we can look holistically about this issue.
2 more emails in the course of this conversation have just dropped into my inbox.
Yeah, so we're responding, and you're copied on those responses even as we speak as well.
And we're also planning ahead with the closure of Martin and Patterson. What is that? 2828 3800? What is that address on Martin Way?
2828 Martin Way.
2828. With the closure of that location in October for renovation and building, we're still looking at that getting into the fall at cold weather shelter and bedding for folks, and we're looking at tons of different places. And we have, absent the ILA, and we'll have them by then, I would imagine. Absent the ILA, we still have funding set aside collectively from the jurisdictions to apply towards that end. So we're still looking several months down the road and planning to get people shelter.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just really quickly, Commissioner Menser, it is a very hard and fast date on the 23rd that they will be removed. I don't think that there's the option to stay at all. That removal of those individuals from that encampment.
So jurisdictions are working on that. However, I just want people to know that even though it butts up against, it's in the city of Olympia, butts up against state property on the Deschutes Parkway, that it's a city issue. It's a privately owned property, and it's the city of Olympia and their departments that are handling and facilitating that, correct?
Yes and no. I know that, primarily Teal, Russell, and myself have been addressing it just by attending and listening and doing what we can to put our heads together, but we haven't been able to come up with any concrete plan.
Okay.
And this is a private property owners moving forward with this, and so I'm not clear how the removal is actually going to operate. In the past, if there's been a sweep in downtown Olympia or in Olympia, that's been on public property. And so the city of Olympia has handled that through public works and code enforcement. And this is a private property owner. So I'm not quite clear on how it's going to move.
Okay, but at least the county's still involved in one facet, and because the county commission, the BoCC, declared homelessness a public health crisis in June of 2018, and nothing happened until 2019, January 2019. Now the county's involved in stepping up to the plate and taking a leadership role and helping all the jurisdictions and bringing resources to bear to help. So we're on it. It's painstakingly slow, but we're on it. So thank you, Keely, for your involvement. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on, then we're going to begin reviewing the BoCC draft agenda for this afternoon, July 21, 2020. And we'll convene the meeting at 2 o'clock, and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Gary Edwards, and then an approval of the agenda and meeting minutes. And then number one on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board.
Yes, you may receive public testimony this afternoon. The one that I know for sure is Mr. Pettit will be addressing the board related to the budget amendment that you will be holding a public hearing on the 29th. You may have other public testimony related to the same issue.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else you're aware of that might come up for public testimony? Nope. Okay. That takes us to the county manager's update.
Yes, I'd like to follow up. Again, Mr. Pettit provided testimony last week in front of the board related to the sales tax, related to the reduction on the sales tax related to as a result of the COVID-19 emergency. So I asked Robin Campbell to be part of that response. So she will be providing to you and the public a response related to that sales tax.
Okay. Questions? I don't see any questions.
I guess just the when that be, she's gonna be responding.
This afternoon during the county manager's update.
Okay, good enough, thank you.
Agenda item number 3 is the consent items A and B. The first one is CPED, resolution reclassifying a position.
Yes, Commissioners, you reviewed this item last week, and this is a request from the Community Planning Economic Development Department to reclassify an education and outreach specialist 3 to an education and outreach specialist 2. Josh Cummins is going through the process of reassessing his department, and as a result of that, every opportunity that he has a vacant position that becomes available, he goes through the process of addressing what the true business needs are on that department. This particular request results on reducing the salary from $7,574 a month to $6,870 a month. That will be a reduction of $704 or a 9.3% decrease. And I believe Jeremy Davis is here in case you have additional questions related to this proposal.
Jeremy, do you have anything, before we ask questions, do you have anything to add?
I would like to say that, our overall annual savings on this is between $6,300 and $8,500 per year. We're always very mindful whenever we're looking at our positions, as County Manager Chavez said, to look at our overall operations to see if that is what we want that position to be before we fill it again.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions about this reclass? No. You did good, Jeremy. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
3B is the auditor's financial services, and I've gone through the list. I trust my my seatmates have any questions regarding the vouchers.
That's for the week of July 6th for the amount of $942,763.29.
Yep. Any questions? No. All right, that takes us to agenda item number 4, the Sheriff's Office, resolution to set rules for jail detention, work release, and day reporting.
Yeah, you reviewed this item last week, and this is a proposal from the Sheriff's Office to for you to enact on a resolution to increase the jail detention rates. I believe Tim Braniff, the undersheriff, addressed the board with some questions last week. We provided you with a copy of the resolution that includes the specific rate increases. And the rate increases varies from how we charge to individuals from other jurisdictions that have been jailed in our facility versus individuals that have been arrested or charged within jurisdictions of Thurston County. And also goes from misdemeanor type of prisoners to work release and other elements. If you like, I can walk you through each of the different rates. I'll be more happy to do that. I know that I provided you with a resolution of the specific rates. So any questions related to this item?
I personally don't need them reiterated because we did discuss it last week, but if my seatmates want them read or gone through, or any questions, please go ahead. Nope, I guess we're okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Romero. Agenda item number 5, Public Health and Social Services. An agreement between Developmentally Disability Administration, County Program, and the county.
Yeah, this is, you also reviewed this item last week, Commissioners, and this is a recommendation from staff from the Public Health and Social Services to enter into a new local agreement with the Developmental Disabilities Administration, DDA, that will be part of the state with the county. And this program covers the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30, 2021. And has a program amount of $5,550,907. The services that we provide under this program, and again, is for developmental disabilities with developmental disabilities individuals, is for Thurston and Mason counties. High level, some of the services includes a high school transition, community information and education activities, employment and community inclusion, among many. You've heard from Mark Muffett last week, and I believe he answered specific questions the board had, and he's available again today if you have further questions on this particular proposal.
Mark, welcome. It's nice to see you again, sir. Do you have anything to add to Romero's presentation?
No, sir. This is a regular contract that we have with DDA, Development Disabilities Administration. The only 3 things that this changes really is the duration. It goes through June of next year, as Romero said. It adds a new program to help high school students with developmental disabilities a year earlier now, and it adds a little bit to the budget so that we can provide services through that program.
Wonderful. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Moffett?
No, sir.
No. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 6, Public Works, PSC Facility Relocation Agreement.
Yeah, this is another item that you reviewed last week, and this is related, I provided a little feedback last week as to how the franchise agreements work within the county. A franchise agreement is when we allow utilities to be placed in the counties right away and at no cost. And this is just a way as to how we can coordinate any particular elements of their services they provide to the community. And when the franchise agreement is within the counties right away, if we have a road project, those utility companies have to relocate those facilities. They are in conflict with our improvements at their own cost. However, when we have projects that encompasses us acquiring additional private land, in this case is for the project, the intersection project of in Marvin Road and Mullen Road, we just found out that Puget Sound Energy has a power pole that is in conflict with the proposed improvements. As a result, we need to enter into an agreement with Puget Sound Energy for them to relocate that particular power pole and eliminate the conflict with the proposed road improvements. This particular amount is for $170,730.55. In this case, the county has to pay Puget Sound Energy to relocate those the power pole, and again, because that was located in a private property when we acquired the rights on within that area. And again, that's part of the normal process, I believe, as how we eliminate conflicts with proposed utilities. And Brian Mayer is the project engineer, is here to answer any additional questions related to this proposal.
Welcome, Brian. Do you have anything further to add?
I have nothing more to add. Romero explained it very well.
He always does. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
The dollar amount, and that's coming out of what budget? And it's prior budget.
It is part of the, comes from the, I believe is the road fund, right?
Yes, road fund.
And that was
Is that it?
Yep, it is included in your budget, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, nothing, Commissioner Menser?
No.
Nope, okay. Brian, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate that.
Thank you, commissioners.
That takes us to the reporting, the commission report on board and work sessions and committees that we've attended, and then the actual cleanup. At 3 o'clock, we have a public hearing, and the topic is public works regarding Long Lake Management District.
Yeah, this public hearing is for you to receive public testimony related to a proposal to increase the rates on the Long Lake Management District. As a matter of clarification in terms of the Lake Management District and the Special Use District, and the reason that I'm making that difference because we're going to be reviewing an Special Use District public hearing in the next agenda. So the Lake Management District is a district formed by individuals who have live nearby a lake, in this case the Long Lake, which they voted themselves to form this district and also voted themselves to charge and implement fees to manage the water quality of the lake. Through this process, the Board of County Commissioners have to approve any type of fee increases. And before the Board of County Commissioners can exercise the legislative authority, you need to hold a public hearing. You receive a briefing on this particular matter, which representatives of the Long Lake Management District stated that the citizens impacted by this proposal, the majority are in support of this proposal. But again, the purpose of this public hearing is for you to allow the public to provide a testimony related to this increase. At this point, you will have only one action this afternoon for you to close the public hearing. Depending on the public testimony, we can probably arrange a follow-up briefing for you to assess whatever public testimony you have received. And if so, then we'll bring another item for you to approve those rates at a later date. Tim Wilson is here to answer any questions related to this public hearing.
Thank you, Tim, for being here. Do you have any question or anything to add?
Good morning, commissioners. The only thing I would add is as of 8:30 this morning, we had no written or emailed comments from ratepayers of Long Lake. We did have one comment from a non-resident out there. I do expect at least one individual to testify this afternoon, and wouldn't be surprised if there were several.
Okay, thank you, sir. Questions from the commissioners to Tim or Romero? Commissioner Menser, go ahead, sir.
Tim, are you going to outline that written comment at today's hearing, or do we get that separately, or how will we get access to that written comment that you received?
I will make sure it's forwarded to you, and I will be at the public hearing this afternoon and will relay that information.
Okay.
Commissioner Menser, this particular comment was sent to you, to the Board of County Commissioners this morning.
Yeah.
And it was submitted by Mr. Pettit.
About Long Lake.
Yes, so you had that in your email box.
I got one about Black Lake yesterday, so I'm just trying to keep my lake
Right.
district upset citizens straight in my head. Thank you.
Yeah, don't
So,
cross
but
the
let me
stream.
know. Let me know if you don't have it. We can make sure that you have that perspective.
So, Tim, at the end of the day, when we close the public hearing, does that mean public comment? We don't take any more? I mean, it's the end of it, or can people still comment? I
Yes.
know they still can, but we would still consider it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would defer to Ramiro on that procedural question. I believe that we would stop taking comments at that point, but I will defer to Ramiro on that.
So I'm thinking lawfully, we have to open it for a certain period of time, but up until the time we decide, emails still will come in. We can consider those things, I mean, those emails.
The formal public comment period ends this afternoon. However, you as a Board of County Commissioners can receive any emails, perspective, and that can be part of your decision-making process before you take a final action on any item, not just on this one, on any item. So yeah, so what we're talking about today is just the formal public hearing period that we're required to provide.
Right, and so I appreciate that's, I knew that's just for public consumption. So thank you for that, Romero. Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
This would be for Tim or Romero, I suppose. When did our public comment period start on this particular issue that we're going to close the public hearing. When did we open the public hearing for this comment?
We advertised per RCW for this, I believe
20 days.
I'm sorry?
20 days.
20 days, yes.
Past 20 days?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, anything else? Tim, thank you. We'll see you this afternoon. Thank you, sir. And the 3:30 Transportation Benefit District meeting has been canceled for today. And so that takes us to the review of the agenda for next Tuesday, July 28, 2020. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. And that day we have two public hearings at the end of the meeting. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice Chair Commissioner Menser, and we'll do the approval of the agenda and the minutes from today. And then we have presentations. The first one is CPED.
Yeah, you will have a presentation by the Fair Board, and this is related to the volunteer hours they have spent. This is an annual report. The Fair Board comes and present that to the board. In past years, it was somewhat of a kickoff of the county fair that is coming up, supposed to be coming in August. But since has been canceled due to the COVID-19 emergency. So, but again, the Fair Board would like to provide with their annual report related to the volunteer hours.
And in years past, of course, not only a full house, but there would be somebody in costume, typically, some animal costume, and that was fun. Any questions or comments, commissioners? Nope. Okay, then we move into the opportunity for the public to address the board, and it's a bit premature, so we will wait throughout the week and see what comes. County manager's update.
Yeah, I will follow up with any public testimony that you might receive today.
All right, thank you. And then agenda item number 3 is the consent items A through D. First is the treasurer's tax title property.
Yeah, for your consideration, and again, every time an item similar to this one comes to your attention, I'd like to provide a feedback and an overview for the public's benefit. The county, when a property becomes delinquent, and the delinquency is when a property fails to pay property taxes. As a result of that, becomes a tax title. And that tax title comes into the custody of the county. The county does not own those properties. They're just held in custody until we can get to the point either to surplus it or getting into a private negotiation. A couple of years ago, the board passed an ordinance empowering the county treasurer to be systematic as to how they can dispose of tax title properties with the ultimate objective to bring those properties into the tax roll, if that is the case. As you have seen in the past, those properties are not necessarily buildable for the most part, and those are small properties. The most likely, the nearby property owner is the one who could benefit by surplusing this tax title. In this particular case, I have attached for you a couple of maps that gives you a depiction of this particular property. As you can tell, this property is 2 acres in size. But first of all, the shape of this property, as well as the proximity to the railroad tracks, and if you see the other map, that is encumbered by wetlands. So as a result, the county assessor has deemed this property unbuildable. So that puts a little different perspective in terms of how we can surplus this property. And in fact, the foreclosure action was conducted. We had no bidders on that. And so the next step after the foreclosure action is to enter in a private negotiation with a property owner. And this is the request that you have before you today. And again, this is a 2-acre parcel, and the proposed sale price is $795.58, which includes fees which includes all the fees. I believe Eric Sullivan from the Treasurer's Office is here if you have any questions related to this particular proposal.
Eric, thanks for being here. Do you have anything to add to Romero's presentation? I can't hear you, sir. I can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Got it. Yeah, he did a good job. Nothing to add. Other than that, everything that you have is on the agenda. If you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions, Commissioner? Either one of you? No. Eric, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Moving on to 3B, boy, is the sheriff's contract for an SRO, School Resource Officer in Rochester.
Yeah, this is a proposal by the Sheriff's Office to approve in a local agreement with the Rochester School District to increase the resource school officer. And this agreement is for $95,000. And that will cover for a full-time sheriff deputy from 2020-21 school years, 21-22, and 2022-2023 years, which goes from September to June. And again, this is a $95,000, I believe, a year. And the way I believe the Sheriff's Office managed this particular resource officers is on an overtime basis, I believe. And you have approved similar contracts with similar school districts. I don't think anybody from the Sheriff's Office is here, but if you have any questions, I can certainly take some notes and bring those answers to you next week.
Any questions, Commissioners? Go ahead, Ty.
So what is the time sensitivity here? Is there time sensitivity is one question. Maybe you need to tell me next week. This is a controversial issue, and for me, and I intended to, knowing that we had these officers, I intended to reach out to the school district superintendents and to kind of discuss with them what the alternatives are and how valuable these positions are to their school. And so I would want time to do that. And I don't know that I can pull that together in a week. I didn't know this was coming. It's the first I'm seeing of this.
Yeah, that's what we'll review the item for next week. Yeah. So
I'm just saying I'm going to need more than a week to address what my position on these particular contracts, unless there's a time sensitivity that can't be worked around.
I don't believe it is a time sensitivity. Obviously, the time sensitivity will be to have this agreement in place before the school year starts. So I tend to believe that probably there's some time for you to do what due diligence you deem is appropriate. So if it's a concurrence by the board, there is another item similar to this. The next item is the C, which is with the Rochester, with Rainier School District for $40,000 on the same intent for a resource officer. So if I have a concurrence with the board, I can probably take those items from next week and maybe bring back for the August 4th. Would 2 weeks give you enough time, Commissioner Messer?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm okay with postponing it for 2 weeks, but I have no question about the value of the SRO in the schools. My only question is, with schools potentially not even opening, does that impact this in any way? Because they're paying for services that I don't know how that would be delivered. But the schools are okay with it. I'm okay with that. But I have no question about the validity of the program. Commissioner Edwards, do you have any questions or comment?
The only thing I would say that I feel I'm in the same position that you are, Commissioner Hutchings. I have no problem, but in deference to Commissioner Menser's district being there, I have no problem with waiting.
Okay, good. Good, so we'll come back to this August 4th.
So I will bring those 2 items for the August 4th agenda, and I will check with Commissioner Menser prior to that to make sure we had enough time to reach out.
Thank you.
I would also ask Commissioner Menser, any data or information, research information that you receive to this issue, if that would be made available to Gary and myself, that'd be appreciated too. So we have time to consume it.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So how the process goes, so you will review this item again for the following week. So we will have a couple touch points before the board considers taking a final action on this.
That's Tuesday, August 4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, you will review the agenda of August 4th next Tuesday
Next
morning.
week.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That takes us to 3D, and that is the auditor's financial services report.
What?
Yep.
Did we skip C?
Is the same issue.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same issue. I have a concern about that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead then. I'm sorry.
I would move to go forward because that's going to assist the school with planning. And I'm recognizing Commissioner Menser's district and that he needs to look into that. On this particular one, I would like to see this contract executed as soon as possible.
And I'm okay with that too.
Sorry, I apologize for that because the description is similar to the previous item. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So, however, even though it's a district-specific, school district-specific district among the 3 of us, it's also contracts that the county sheriff is entering. Should they be lumped together or not, Romero? Because I'm okay with both of them, but I'm okay with putting the one off in deference to Commissioner Menser. But
no, I apologize. I jump into that conclusion.
Yeah.
So it really is how the board's direction is. So what I'm hearing is the item 3B is delayed to August 4th. That's the previous discussion. Now the item 3C, then whatever you like to proceed with.
Is that also not time sensitive as 3B?
I believe is the same time sensitivity as the previous one because based on the description that I'm reading, is the same activities.
Okay.
Different school
Well, I know where I stand. I know where I stand on both of them. So I have no problem putting both of them till the 4th. But that still gives the sheriff and the school district plenty of time to plan. In my head, I don't know. Gary?
I have to say, I think the school districts need as much planning time as we can give them. And the sheriff undoubtedly has been working with these districts to come up with this proposal. And so other than deference to the district issue, I would like to see us move forward because I have no problem with either one of these, but I would like to have Commissioner Menser have his questions asked, especially because it's in his district. So that's why I'd like to move forward with this and make sure that we do give the schools the lead time that they might need for scheduling activities.
Okay. Commissioner Menser, do you have anything? Go ahead.
I'm trying to think of a compromise, potentially putting them both out for a week so they're reviewed next week and then on the agenda for the 4th might be okay. I mean, I get that they're two different districts, but I still have to vote on, the appropriation and, you know, all three commissioners have to place a vote. So I would maybe think that if we put them both out for 1 week, review again next week with a potential agenda action on the 4th of August. That's a week earlier than we had said, right, Ramiro?
Yeah.
And then
That's
put them, but keep them both together. That'd be I guess that's my compromise proposal on that.
Okay, I have to say, it's there for a reason, on timing. If we had a situation where maybe the sheriff could advise us on this through one of his staff people, I don't want to delay it any more than it has to be. And I don't know if it's time specific or not, but I do know that the schools require adequate time to schedule for whatever they're going to do in their upcoming year. We don't know what that is. This has been worked out by the sheriff and the school districts, obviously. So they felt it was important to get it in front of this board. So I don't mind if what Commissioner Menser is proposing is that we wait 1 week, because it sounded like you were going to need 2 weeks, sir. That was my only concern. Are you saying that we're only going to need to delay it 1 week then?
Yeah,
That's what I'm proposing, to try to find a middle ground here.
This is, what we're reviewing is for next week. So just be putting it off 1 week. So if we could hear from the sheriff or staff and or the superintendent from either district, that'd be helpful too. But the contract, Romero, that is it September through June, or how does that run?
Yeah, it's September through, let me get that information for you.
I think it's September through June.
September through June.
Okay.
For the Rochester, and I believe the Rainier is about the same as the school year. Yes, September through June.
Yeah. But again, I have no problem with either one. But if we're just putting off a week in deference to Commissioner Menser, if we don't hear there's any urgency, if school's not going to be coming back into session, I don't think in September. I think we got a little bit of time. So I'm ready to go, but out of respect for Commissioner Menser, I'm willing to put them both off to the 4th. Unless we hear from the school district or sheriff, hey, we need a decision next week.
Yeah, that is also my concern. So between now and noon, I know that there are individuals from the different offices that are watching our agenda setting here going on today. So I would say if this becomes a time-sensitive issue, I would prefer to move forward with it today. If we don't hear,
this agenda is for next week.
I know it is, but I want to make sure that we don't delay without hearing from them. And today, I'd like to hear if it's a problem or not, time-wise.
So
if it's not, if we don't hear, then I'd like to make sure it stays just the way it is.
So I'm a little bit confused on the direction then, if I may. So what I'm hearing is Commissioner Menser, Commissioner Hutchins would like to delay this for a week. They will consider taking a final action on August 4th. Commissioner Edwards is requesting to get information today and bring those items today for your action if the sense of urgency is stated by the sheriff's office. So it's two different directions that I have on this.
I guess my preference would be that we stay the course if we get a call from the sheriff's office today that says, hey, this is a time-sensitive issue. If not, then I'm fine with the delay of a week so Commissioner Menser can take a look at his situation.
And said maybe a different way, I'm willing to put this off to August the 4th, both items, unless we hear in the short order that is time sensitive and needs to move for some reason or another.
Okay, I'm fine with that. You did a better job articulating the situation, sir.
Is that all right with you, Commissioner Menser? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I won't be voting for it if I don't have a chance to talk to the superintendent of the school. I don't need a meeting with the sheriff. I know the case for the SRO.
Yeah.
I want to hear about what it really is doing on the ground and what the alternatives are. I'm also have a question of why is there a 3-year contract for Rochester and it looks like a 1-year for Rainier? Is there something behind that we should know?
That is not unusual because each school district exercise those services either on a year-by-year basis or over a period. Is mainly how the school districts like to approach this. I don't believe there is any particular reason behind it. It's just the ability of every school district to have the budget capacity on a yearly basis. That's the only reason, I believe.
And I'll go back to my initial question, and that is, if there's no school year for 2021, the school district is still paying, and what services are they receiving for that? Because it's revenue. We're providing a service, but it's revenue. And I just need to know how COVID fits into this.
Well,
Okay.
I believe this is on a reimbursable basis, so it will be for services rendered.
Okay. Okay. So there's no revenue if there's no school year.
There's no services, there's no revenue.
Right. Got it. If that's how it's written, then okay, that answers my question.
So with all due respect, I'm totally confused as to what the board likes to do on these two items.
We're putting both items off until August the 4th, unless we hear from the school districts or the sheriff, in my opinion, not a case for the SRO, but the urgent times, their time deadline to get this done next week rather than August the 4th.
Okay, sounds good. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us miraculously to 3D Delta, the financial services report, and we'll see that when it comes in. And takes us to department item, agenda item number 4, the sheriff, request for a proposal for a contract of inmate telephone system.
Yeah, this is a proposal by the sheriff's office for you to consider issuing a request for a proposal to secure the services for inmate telephone system and video visitation system. The request for proposal, and again, is for inmate phone and video visitation services at the jail. There are currently 41 phones, 18 mounted visit tablets, 2 kiosks, 44 tablets, 2 video relay tablets, 2 portable phones, 4 visit tablets mounted on roll-around cards, and 30 local dial tone phone lines servicing Thurston County Corrections Facility. The number of phone calls in 2019 was 175,416, which equates to just about 1.1 million minutes in 2019. The tablet usage for 2019 was about 3.2 million minutes, almost 87,000 messages received, and roughly 138,000 messages sent. The county receives a commission for phone and tablet usage, which is deposited into the prisoner concession fund and used to and is used for the health and welfare of the inmates. So it's invested right into the inmates. Telephone access is from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, and some housing units have a 24-hour access as well. Video visitation is from 9 in the morning to 9 p.m. daily. And the request for proposal the Sheriff's Office is asking for you to consider issuing will go from August 18th to January 1st, 2021. That's the actual contract, I'm sorry. The contract will go through beginning January 1st, 2021. So from now until the end of the year, we'll be issuing the request for proposal for the services and then signing the contract with the provider.
All right, any questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Go ahead, Ty.
Mayor, I think I'm sure you explained this and I missed it at the beginning of your presentation. Is there a problem with the current system?
No, it's more of a contractual issue because the current contract lapses and we need to go with a request for proposal to secure the services. It's more of a bidding process issue, procurement process than anything else.
So it may end up being the same vendor.
It will may be the same. It's just going through a competitive process to secure the services.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. That takes us to agenda item number 5, Public Health and Social Services, the 2020 housing contracts.
Yeah. Thank you. On February 21st, 2020, the board authorized and we issued the request for proposals for homeless and affordable housing applications. The team received the applications and representatives from Thurston County as well as other local jurisdictions reviewed the applications and ranked them accordingly. This review team forwarded those recommendations to the Health and Human Services Council, HHSC, which is made up by elected officials from City of Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, as well as the county, Tenant, Rainier, Bucota. I believe Commissioner Hutchins sits on that HHSC. In May of this year, HHSC met and discussed the recommendations forward by the review team. And they have agreed to bring to the commissioners recommendations to award those contracts. There is 5 new projects funded by the House Bill 2163, and also there's 11 multi-year contracts also funded by House Bill 2123. The total contract amount for this award is $703,645. And there is a series of allocations in here. Let me just walk you through quickly, and then I will have probably Tom to answer any questions that you may have. The recommendation is for the Catholic Community Services for the Drexel House, $90,000. Catholic Community Services for the Drexel House Emergency Shelter, $79,000. Community Youth Services for the Ross's Place, it's $161,000. Community Services for Young Adult Housing, $150,000. Family Support Center of South Sound for Coordinated Entry and Diversion, $163,000. Family Support Center for Homeless Family Service for $69,000. Family Support Center of South Sound for the Pearl Blossom Place, that is $106,000. Interfaith Works for Interfaith Works Emergency Overnight Shelter Program, $351,000. Interfaith Works for Operation Cost, Daytime Services and Outreach, $266,000. Rochester Organization for Families, Rental Assistance for $10,000. Safe Place for Safe Place Residential Program, Operations and Services for $92,000. And for housing related needs for the Community Action Council of Lewis, Mason, and Thurston County, that will be for the Housing Stabilization Program for $84,000. For Community Youth Services for the Haven House, $25,000. Family Support Center of South Sound for the Housing Basic Needs for $25,000. Rebuilding Together of Thurston County for the Critical Repair Program, $17,000. Rochester Organization of Families for the Housing Basic Needs for $9,000. And then is a set aside for an emergency fund for $121,000 and a point in time count for $25,000. And that will equate to the overall cost. Tom is available to answer any questions the board may have.
Good morning, Tom. Nice to see you again. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Tom? Tom, do you have anything to add to Romero's presentation?
No, just to kind of clarify, you made some funding decisions back in May. Usually that's when these decisions are made. We delayed awarding these contracts because we wanted to see a couple more months of revenue around the 2163, which is a document recording fee. So there was a bit of a delay. as we saw that revenue. We are not awarding the cold and hazardous weather contracts at this time because we want to further explore what our cold and hazardous weather options are. So we'll be coming to you probably in August for approval of our cold and hazardous weather contracts funded with this document recording fee as well, $2163.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Tom regarding the HHSC awards? Wow, no. Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.
5B boy is healthcare, the HCA, Healthcare Authority contract.
Yeah, Thurston County Public Health Social Services, Thurston County receives an annual allocation from the Criminal Justice Treatment Account, also known as CJTA. Funding from the State of Washington Healthcare Authority. This funding must be spent on substance and systems use and abuse disorder treatment and recovery support services for those individuals involved in the criminal justice system. This agreement has a maximum amount of $371,177 and will cover for the period July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. This particular allocation is an increase from the previous allocation, which the previous allocation was $239,327. Carrie Hennon is the one who manages this program, is available to answer any questions related to this proposal.
Good morning, Carrie. It's nice to see you. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so. So this is a pretty big increase of $130,000. The legislature back in February added money through a budget proviso to increase criminal justice treatment account investment. So this is a bright spot on the revenue side. And we were, you may recall that in state fiscal year 2019, we were underspent in this fund source, but for the state fiscal year that just ended on June 30th, we did spend our full allocation. So it's nice to have more money going forward.
Absolutely. Any questions, commissioners, of Carrie? Go ahead, Ty.
So remind me how this funding gets allocated. I know with treatment sales tax, we have a committee and recommendations. How does this money get allocated and what will happen to this $130,000 extra?
So pursuant to the statute underlying the criminal justice treatment account, there is a local CJTA panel, and the statute identifies specific members, including the sheriff's office, prosecuting attorney's office, superior court, drug court, public defense, and a treatment provider. So that panel develops a local plan. I will be back to you at some point in the next few weeks with our local plan, seeking your approval of that plan. So it's really that group that will kind of, again, develop that plan. You'll have the opportunity to approve that, and you'll probably hear about some of the subcontracts as well. So most of it in the past has been spent by Superior Court, Drug Court, and the new funding that the legislature put in via budget proviso does have a narrower set of allowable uses than the rest of the money. So they've made it a little bit complicated for us, but we're sorting through all of that, and that panel is meeting next week. So you'll hear from us again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Anything, Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
No. Carrie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Takes us to agenda item number 6, Central Services, call for sealed bids for HVAC.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your consideration is for you to authorize the Department of Central Services to issue bids to secure a contractor to provide construction for the replacement of the TCOM 911 emergency services, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units. This will be including the removal of 2 existing 10-ton split system heat pumps and associated components, and I believe this system has reached the useful life and it's time to replace it. And this is going to be paid by the Central Services Building Reserve and has been included on in the budget for this year. And I believe Mariusz is here, available to for you to answer any questions you may have related to this proposal.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning, Mr. Kowalewski. Do you have anything to add?
No, it is end of life again. We have difficulty in summer and winter to sustain temperature, especially in call center. The server room, which requires a study temperature system. And we are ending up with very efficient way of dealing with split units very selectively for each of those spaces. So system will be much more efficient. And we are ending up replacing 7 split units total.
And where does this money come from, Romero?
This is, Commissioner, this is coming from the building reserve.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Questions, commissioners? Go ahead, Ty.
So I'm not a building guy, so this question may be off base, but I attend a lot of meetings related to the climate change planning, and there's always a discussion about when building upgrades are made, are we converting, those are opportune moments to convert to technologies that are going to reduce the carbon footprint of the county or the local government. And I'm not sure if this is such an opportunity, but the commissioners also last year agreed to put sort of climate considerations into our various decision-making processes. And this would be an opportunity to do that if it's relevant or appropriate.
It's a very good question, Commissioner. And what is interesting, technology is really moving ahead, and it's much better than used to be, which means that even a couple of years ago, we'll try to do LEED project. But this time, there is no reason even to go there because those split units are very efficient, not only in energy use, but in selective work style. This means that you can really set controls in ways that performance is much better. So this is what is happening right now. We are getting kind of, we review very well the whole system. The engineer hired, Hult's engineers were recommending different options, were driven by budget, and the product we have, I think, will meet all those ideas in bringing up and cost of exploitation and life cycle. So this is the best what I can offer right now. If there's more detail, I can share with you.
I think that will do for today. Maybe we could have a conversation offline about, some of these things. I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. It'd be a good opportunity for me. So I'll connect with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Edwards, anything?
No, sir. I think it's been covered just right. I think we are living up to that commitment that we made some time back.
And as well as perhaps replacing very inefficient system.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate
Thank you
that.
very much. Appreciate it.
Agenda items number 7, A, B, and C is the cleanup that we normally do and wrap up of the meeting. And then we have a 3 o'clock public hearing regarding the Rochester sub-area plan.
Yeah, you have 2 public hearings next Tuesday, Commissioner. The first one is for you to receive public testimony related to the Rochester sub-area plan update. You have received a couple of briefings related to this proposal, and you included on your 2020-2021 official comprehensive plan docket. And the item is CP7B. And this will be an opportunity for you to hear directly from the public as to, before you consider taking an action, perhaps revising the plan based on the public testimony. There has been a significant public outreach leading to this point. And I believe Shannon Shula, the planner leading this particular effort, is available to give you additional details related to this proposal leading to the public hearing next week.
Are you there, Shannon?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Do you have anything to add before we get to questions?
No, I think we're ready to go for next week.
Okay, commissioners, any questions regarding the public hearing on the Rochester sub-area plan? Doesn't look like it. Shannon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on to the second public hearing, Public Works. This is for Black Lake.
Yeah, this is for you to consider public testimony on the special use district. And that's the reason why I explained the difference between a lake management district versus the special use district. A lake management district is managed by the county, but we provide support and expertise to the lake management districts. On the special use district is self-managed. The county does not have any oversight related to their operations. However, every time that any particular proposal in relation to increasing fees and they may affect some of the residents associated with the special use district, the Board of County Commissioners needs to hold a public hearing before you consider taking an action on this. The request is really to generate $103,000, I believe, annually, and for them to issue a $1.4 million bond to treat the lake. You heard some on the briefing a couple of weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, related to this proposal. Actually, it was on June 24th. Time flies by of this year that you received that briefing, where some members of the leadership of the special use district provided their perspective, and perhaps there's some support, as they stated, on this particular proposal. So the proposed special assessment ranges as low as $32 annually to as high as $17,736 annually, and that will be on a property the Washington State Parks owns. So, but the median cost for the affected properties will be about $575. Jim Wilson is the staff person who has been coordinating and managing this aspect, and he's available to answer any questions the board may have.
Good morning, Tim. Thank you for being here. Do you have anything to add?
Good morning, Commissioners. I would just add that similar to Long Lake, there's been a somewhat robust outreach campaign on this. In addition to the required legal notices, there were also mailings that have gone out to all of the affected residents.
All right, Commissioners, any questions? Go ahead, Ty.
Tim, I was sent a letter and it was actually addressed to you, so I assume you got it, although it was emailed to me separately. And I actually know one of the people that signed the letter, and I'm just concerned that the presentations that we've gotten about what's planned, they used a certain name. I can't remember, alum or something like that, treatment. And then this letter is talking about a whole bunch of other chemicals that I don't know if they're component parts of the thing and they're actually talking about the same thing, or if there's some misinformation flying around and they're talking about two different things. But I just wondered if you'd gotten that letter and if you could help me sort through the facts in the letter and whether or not there's a way to clear up the citizens' concern, because I had understood that the thing that Black Lake was planning to do, they had done in the past, and it had been effective, and it was thought to be, no chemical is 100% safe, so I get that, but I thought it was kind of on the safer end of things that we might try to do. So I just wondered if you'd seen that letter and if you had any reaction to it.
Before you answer, Tim, Commissioner Menser, is this the letter that spoke of carcinogens and Roundup and such?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why I asked when we had this briefing, if we were more restrictive or less than the Department of Ecology, what they recommended, and what the downside of this would be as well, for the same reason about chemicals and runoff and such, or leaching. So go ahead, Tim.
Yes, I did receive the letter this morning and had a long conversation with those individuals yesterday morning. I can only speak to what was in the original petition from the Black Lake Special District in terms of what their intent is for this bond. And as I understood it from the petition, this is more geared toward an alum treatment. So that's an aluminum phosphate treatment that is to deal with the algae blooms in the lake. And that is a treatment that has been done in Black Lake in the past, as well as several other lakes within the county. So I do believe that the special use district was going to put some messaging out there. I can't speak to what has been put out there. The glyphosate, the reference to glyphosate in the conversation with the folks yesterday was news to me. Although I would say that glyphosate is a relatively commonly used herbicide for lakeside and aquatic vegetation. So can't speak to their concerns about glyphosate. Other than it's a little bit different than the intent of the petition from the Black Lake Special District. Does that answer your questions?
Well, it sounds like glyphosate's not some part of aluminum phosphate. It is something different, and you're not sure if there's a connection between the plans and that. And then okay, I mean, I think, and then what, I guess, did they seem, the way your conversation was left, did they seem satisfied with the information they were getting, or are they still extremely concerned, or said you weren't, that's not what their understanding of the treatment was going to be?
Well, my perception of the conversation was that they had two primary concerns. One was the fact that there was an increase in their rates, and they were not users per se of the lake. They did not have boats, and were not users. Were concerned about the fees. And the other one was his background in biology and his understanding of herbicides and concerns in general with the use of herbicides in the lake.
Commissioner Edwards, go ahead.
I don't know who to address this to, county manager, maybe Tim. I've had conversations now with both citizens that live in a lake management district and a special use district around the lake's activity. And one of the concerns that keeps coming up is the dollar amount that the state contributes to whatever the situation or problem is that these districts are dealing with. And the citizen argument is that these lakes are publicly accessed lakes. So people are coming from all around the state to utilize and recreate on those particular bodies of water. And the vast, vast majority of the cost is incurred by the property owners that live adjacent to or on nearby, at least on these lakes, different districts or special use districts. Each one of them are somewhat different. My question is, who sets the rates for the contribution by the state to offset some of these maintenance problems? Would you happen to know the answer to that?
Yes, I can speak to that a little bit. So for both the lake management districts, one of the lake management districts and the Black Lake Special Use District, the state contributes fairly significantly, I think they would argue, towards the work plan for the lake. So for this special assessment, Washington State would be charged an additional $17,735, whereas the average parcel out there would be charged in the mid $500 range. As far as how that is determined, again, for both the LMDs and the special use districts, there is a day use component that is a part of that formula. Typically, that is done at the formation of the district, either of the special use district or lake management district, in which a formula that calculates how many users are accessing the boat launch or swimming or using that property on a daily basis is factored into that formula. And that is reviewed and updated on a somewhat regular basis.
And who sets the rate, sir? That's what I'm wondering about.
Typically, with for the lake management districts at formation, the lake management districts, in conjunction with county staff, would put together a proposal based upon what they hope to accomplish through their work plan. They would put together a proposal of the rates and fees, the assessment role. So for Long Lake, for instance, that was done at formation back in 2015. While I wasn't here during the formation of Black Lake Special Use District, I would assume it's the same.
I guess I would ask my fellow seatmates if they would be interested in getting a more in-depth analysis of how this takes place. Many of the districts maybe have a much older district than the recent one you refer to from 2015. And I wonder if these rates have been neglected in adjusting the rates. And what was brought to my attention by citizens was that there are, they claim thousands of out of, or at least away from the lake users are coming there, and those people are buying a license from the state of Washington to run their boats on these public and state-owned waterways, apparently. And it sounds like the state is not paying their fair share. So I would like to see some review of who sets it. If we can affect that, I'd like to be able to do something to help our lake property owners get some relief and end up with better service from whomever, the district, the county, the state, to address their particular problems. And all these problems are a little bit different, whether it's a weed control issue or algae or whatever the issue is. I think we would be doing our citizens a service by reviewing how this whole process came about, what the process actually is, if we do in fact have some authority over making these adjustments. I don't know myself, and Tim, I realize I'm catching you off guard on this particular question, so I wouldn't expect that you would be able to come up with an in-depth analysis on such a short moment's notice here. But I would like to see if we could not help the lake property owners who remind me regularly that they pay a big chunk of extra taxes to live on these lake properties or adjacent to these lake properties. So any chance, I don't know what it would take, but could we get a thumbs up from my seatmates if they're so inclined to at least review this?
I'm okay with that. Ty? Yeah, it's any information is good information. And I'm concerned not only so much about the rates and such, but also the chemicals, what we're putting in the drink. But I have another question, and that is, who owns the boat ramp, Tim? Is it State Fish or the county or the district? Who owns that?
State Fish and Wildlife has boat launches both at Black Lake Special District and Long Lake.
So it's been 2 minutes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I can fairly quickly send you the formulas for probably all three of the management districts for the information on day use and how that's calculated. I would also just add really quickly, if I may, that the State Department of Ecology has programs of which we've benefited and the districts have benefited from on several of occasions regarding grants for treatment of noxious weeds within lakes. So if any of you own boats and pay tabs on your boats, a good portion of that goes to a fund that then we apply for grants to manage some of those weeds as well. So
it's been too many years since I boated and down at Black Lake. So I don't recall if there was a fee. Did I pay a fee to launch down there?
No.
No, I don't believe you do.
Okay, that's probably why I went. But the state would be in charge of whether they're going to set a boating fee to launch your boat from there, correct? Or for day use?
The day use is the way the day use is applied is Fish and Wildlife maintains a record, and I don't know how they come to this number, but they maintain an estimate of how many people are using their facilities on a given day. And then from there, we apply fees based on that number. If it's a heavily used boat launch, then they receive a higher factor and they pay a higher rate in their fees, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Okay. Ramiro, then Gary? Just so we can jump in.
Commissioner has the
All right, go ahead, Gary.
weight.
I guess I am not satisfied with just getting more material explaining how something is done. I'm going to need a briefing myself. I mean, I prefer having some kind of a briefing on this particular topic so that citizens can also be informed during this briefing as to how the process takes place and if in fact it's fair or if in fact it needs to be reviewed, and we could give some relief to our taxpayers who continually remind me that they're paying a lot of taxes and they don't feel they're getting an adequate response from government to deal with these particular problems, because the state claims ownership of these waters. So if that is in fact the case, and you may mention that folks that buy licensing for their boats and stuff, that the state does do some coordination with local government to fix things, but I'd like to know a little more, and I believe our citizenry would definitely like to know a little more. That seems to be the topic of conversation that I'm hearing about from all the lakes, not just those that have a lake management district, but there's a lot of other lakes that have boat launches as well, and people are coming from all over that, I don't know, you can call it adding to the problem. I don't know, I guess. I'm not saying there's a problem, but adding to the situation at hand, so.
Okay, go ahead, Romero.
Well, he was one step ahead of me, Commissioner Edwards. I was going to propose that you hold a public hearing and then we'll schedule a follow-up briefing for you to assess what the public testimony you receive. And at that point, Tim will walk you through the formulation of how the fees are established.
I like that. That thumbs up? Okay.
Yeah, any step in the direction of solving this problem, I'm all for.
Ty, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
That concludes that meeting for next week, and we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Before you go on the break, Commissioner, I did have a response from, thank you for the technology, from the undersheriff related to the timing of the contracts with the school districts. And his statement is the school districts would like to have this done, established as soon as possible.
That comes from the sheriff's office.
Yep, the undersheriff.
Okay. I still would like to hear from the the school superintendents, but go ahead, Gary,
Well,
if you do it briefly.
I do believe that he's reflecting, because I think he's the one that negotiates with the school district. So I think that because we're proceeding, we're talking about an issue that's gonna come up on next week's board, on next Tuesday, and then we wouldn't be voting on that until August 4th anyway. If we could just stick with that time frame, and that'll give Commissioner Menser adequate time to maybe come to the information, get the information that he needs.
Fine, we'll just keep the steady course then.
Just keep on the same time frame that originally proposed by the county manager.
All right, Romero, thank you for that information, that update.
So just to clarify, we have those two items on the August 4th for final consideration.
Yes.
Okay. So one last item that is not included in your agenda for the public benefit. We do have another public hearing on Wednesday, July 29th, 3 in the afternoon. And that public hearing is related to, for you to receive public testimony related to the proposed fourth budget amendment that you may be considering taking an action on August 4th. Again, the public hearing on that is scheduled for Wednesday, July 29th, 3 in the afternoon in this room.
All right. All right, then we're gonna recess for 10 minutes. We'll be back at 11 o'clock. Give staff a chance to catch up. Thank you very much.
You're on.
And you're muted, Romero, your room.
Oh, no. You're on, Commissioner.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. It is just after 11 o'clock, and it was my bad. I should have called for a 15-minute break rather than a 10. We've had this for 2 hours, and now we're going to stretch right in. We got to get this done in about 55 minutes because we have a Safe Start in County Variance virtual meeting at noon. So proclamations and awards.
There are none for this week.
None, okay. And moving on to advisory boards and commissions.
Yes, today we have one application from Angela White for the Pack Mountain Workforce Development Council. This application was actually first reviewed the first 2 weeks of March, along with a few others. They were given a thumbs up to move forward, but we see now that this specific applicant did not receive a formal action. So we would like to include Angela's appointment on the agenda for today at 6 p.m. or next Tuesday, if you prefer. And the term dates for this appointment are July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2022.
Commissioner?
Okay, and just real quick, I attended the Pack Mountain Consortium meeting because I'm assigned to Pack Mountain on Friday, a couple hours, and Cheryl Fambles brought this to my attention that we have a vacancy, and we had an application in that hadn't been acted on yet, and so I contacted Romero, and boom, here it is. So we're discussing this right now, and I have absolutely no issue with Angela White being appointed, but I'll turn to my seatmates.
I also would like to see this happen today, if possible.
Commissioner Menser?
I thought we did act on this application.
Yes, and that's what Amy stated. You review this application, you give direction to appoint, go through this appointment, and what happened is we never brought an actual item before you.
Okay.
Okay, well, we already decided.
Yeah,
so-
you already decided, and that is the request to add on today's agenda for you to take a formal action because they reviewed the application and your decision was already taken.
Okay, good. And then Angela will be notified.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Thank you very much. Anything else on advisory boards and commissions?
No, that is it.
Thank you, Amy. PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. Bringing back a request from Commissioner Edwards from last week. I'm going to provide you with the numbers that we have currently on our social media. Constant Contact, which is the way we send out our county news stories and Friday 5 newsletter. We have 489 subscribers. Facebook, we have 10,295 followers. In Twitter, we have 6,348 followers. YouTube, we have 448 subscribers, but that doesn't limit the people who view it without subscribing. So we have more people viewing than actually subscribe.
Your audio is breaking up,
Sorry.
Megan.
All right. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that I did.
Okay. And then Instagram, there's 1,746 followers. So
Okay.
combined between all of our social media platforms, we have 19,326 subscribers total.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so it's a pretty good representation. But we continue to get more followers every day, so that's good. We're getting our information out. And then I
Very
also
good.
wanted to tell you we're running a 60-day masking campaign through Thurston Talk. And in the first 30 days of the campaign, the ad saw 136,871 impressions. So that many people saw and reacted to the masking campaign. I just sent a few more photos to Thurston Talk, which they've updated, and the ad's gonna run for another 30 days. The campaign is really just to remind people to mask up. It's just photos of you guys and other Thurston County residents wearing masks, doing different things.
What was that number? How many?
The impressions that we saw for the first 30 days was 136,871.
Wow.
Well, impressions.
Impressions.
That means positive and negative.
Well, they don't have an option to say whether it's positive or negative.
Oh, so
It's just that's how many people saw it
Okay.
and either clicked on it or
So it's not like a Facebook.
no.
Okay, gotcha.
Nope.
So almost 137,000 in 30 days. That's pretty good.
Yes. Yeah, Thurston Talk has a really strong following, so there's a lot of people in our community who are seeing that masking campaign.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for or comments for Megan?
Yes.
Go ahead. If you can do it briefly, because we got to.
Okay, I'm going to keep it really short. Could we get an email to our support staff or somehow get us that information that was rattled off? Because it's good information.
Yes, I will send that to your assistants.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anything, Commissioner Menser? Nor do I, Megan. Thank you so much for all the work you and Brian are doing.
Thank you.
Legislative update, Romero, when you get back.
I really don't have any specific updates. Nothing from my last week's report that apparently there is not going to be a special session anytime soon. If there is any special session, either will be after the general election in November. And at that point, we'll beg the question whether that will be effective or not. That's the only thing that I can report on that.
Yeah. Okay. Briefings and public hearing decisions pending?
Nothing pending.
All right. Commissioner items. Number one is Building Development Center update.
Yeah, Josh and his staff is ready just to give you a brief update on the Building Development Center activities related to the number of permits that we have processed and during the closure of the offices, as well as he's going to walk you through on a specific example of some of the new improvements the staff has gone through and related to the permits timeline.
All right.
Good morning, Josh. Thanks for being here.
Morning. Thank you, Commissioner. Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, CPED. Thank you for the opportunity to kind of highlight some of the successes and challenges of our team during these COVID times, as it were. Wanted to just relay my sincere appreciation to the Board of County Commissioners for the grace and flexibility that you've shown as we've tried to work with our citizens to continue to serve them on the applications for building and land use. And then secondly, a huge thanks to the folks on the front line, our BDC staff, the Building Development Center. These are our junior staff employees, but they were the last ones out during the phase 2 closure and the first ones back in during the phase 3 closure. These folks are in service to our citizens and our community, and I really appreciate the work that they've done. What we found in phase 2 when we had to close the courthouse for physical contact was we worked quickly to engage our technology, so emails, e-inspections, all those items, and build those as quickly as possible. We've already been in the process of figuring out how to use that, but we had to ramp it up quickly to ensure that the pipeline for applications didn't close, and we were able to do that successfully. What we did find, however, was that we reached the limits of our technology in terms of emailing, and only because of the way that back and forth works. Usually conversations that would take 5 minutes at the counter when you could have an interaction, what could end up taking 2 or 4 or 5 days because voicemails aren't returned, emails aren't returned, back and forth from the citizens and the applicant and the staff members. So just that the logistics of it created a big bottleneck there. During phase 2, we built an application backlog of 90 applications. And that is when you started to feel and hear the citizens being frustrated. We felt it and heard it as well. We were also frustrated, but we reached those limits of the technology that we currently have. When we went into phase 3 and were able to have contact, our staff, led by Sandy Norton, who was on here, the supervisor of the BDC, and Brett Burris, who is the Development Services Manager. He is not on here because he's currently serving down at the IMT, the Incident Management Team, as working on the COVID response. But the two of them were proactive and said, let's reach out to that backlog directly and email them and ask them to reconfirm their application in person. And so folks came into the office during phase 3, we reconfirmed their application, we got it into a physical file, and Let me do the numbers real quick. We had 90 total backlog. July 6th, we're able to work down to 71. July 10th, down to 52. And as of today, that 90 is down to 7 in the backlog. And that's about 3 or 4 humans working their tails off for the citizens of Thurston County. It's just a huge success, and I just want to appreciate them and you for the support. And to recognize that the pipeline of applications never shut down. It was constricted by technology, but our team worked really hard to make sure it never stopped.
That's quite impressive. My goodness. So 7 as of today. That's wonderful.
And these are the folks that you see across the hall.
Do the commissioners have any questions regarding that piece? Because I think Josh has a little bit more, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, good. Okay.
And
Go ahead, Josh.
And this, to wrap that up, that's the success part of it, but let me just make sure that we are clear on the difficulties. Technology, as I mentioned, the emailing back and forth. The Dropbox has become a bit of a difficulty. There is this level of people saying that they've dropped things off, but they're not actually in the Dropbox. So having a conversation with the citizens, the applicants, and their contractor is going to be really helpful going forward. And then we're also concerned about backsliding. If we do go back to phase 2, we need to be prepared to reinitiate the high level of grace that you guys have shown previously and recognize that while we're looking for technology solutions, we may have another backlog built up. So that's the BDC update.
Okay. Are you going to cover anything? Are you going to cover the Johnson Smokehouse review or no?
Yeah, do you guys have this memo in front of you?
Yep, they do.
Okay, great. So if you'll recall, the Johnson Smokehouse is an applicant, but bigger than that, this is our first pilot for the project review timeline. You know, we think of items in CPED as people, process, tools. And one of the things that we recognize that our process for applications was somewhat confusing. And it had been referred to in the past as bring me another rock. And so people would say, here's what I want to do. And then we'd say, here are the rocks you need to get. They go get a rock, quote unquote, bring it back. And we'd say, oh, you need this and that. And there would be this back and forth that would create just a huge amount of time and confusion.
Like the HCP.
One more time, please.
Like the HCP.
Indeed. But this one is ours to fix. And Brett Burris took the reins on this and created the project review timeline so that right up front, the applicant tells us exactly what they want to accomplish. We give them a set time frame of the amount of time once they submit the application. Then they have a window of time to do a second round, and then we get them to the hearings examiner or a decision. And it's really about consistency. Like what people really need to know is how quickly is this going to work? What's the timeline and how much is it going to cost? And Brett has worked to create that. And if you'll see here, we use the Johnson Smokehouse as our first pilot project in this process. And it is going through, it's a process, it's success in process. And if you'll see the timeline, the date of the fire that burned down the Johnson Smokehouse building was early 2019. They first checked in with CPED in April of 2019. And this is where it can get a little confusing for citizens. Sometimes people say, you know, I talked to somebody and they told me I could do all this stuff. That's not the beginning of our timeline. The beginning of our timeline is a formal application. We're here to answer questions and we'll do our best. But until we receive a formal application, our clock doesn't actually start ticking. So recognizing that the date of application, November 18th, 2019, is when the clock started ticking. And you'll see that we worked really hard with the citizen to make sure that all of the application was exactly what they wanted to do. And they wanted to do 2 buildings, a commercial building, 4,000 square foot metal building for the creation of the smoked goods. And then separately, a second building for retail, the selling of the smoked goods. And so we got their applications, worked with them to make sure that they had everything that they needed. We're able to get to the hearings examiner and the first decision for the commercial building on July 6th. And the second hearing for the retail building happened on July 14th, and we're awaiting a decision on that. They were successful in the commercial building, awaiting a decision on the retail building. And you can see the projected date here for application approvals is August 1st. So the speed at which we were able to provide a very complicated project I think is proving the concept of the project review timeline that Brett has created. And we look forward to replicating this with other applications as they come in the future. Please, that was a lot.
What is HEX? You said the application?
Hearings examiner.
Oh, hearings examiner, HEX, okay, got it, thank you.
And we've actually found that there has been a bit of a bottleneck there. We have one hearings examiner, and she's up in the Snohomish County area, and they were just flooded after the kind of the same thing that happened with the BDC. They had a bunch in the backlog, and they tried to work through them. And so that was one of the places where the timeline got pushed a little more. But we're looking for a second hearings examiner, a pro tem, that we could also use as a backup. So we've recognized there's a bottleneck, and we're trying to fix that as well.
Quite impressive. Thank you very much. I and the community, and I know the Johnsons are truly appreciative of all the effort that your team has done and put forth in this. So thank you very much for that, Josh.
Thank you.
Questions or comments from my seatmates? Go ahead, Gary.
Josh, I want to commend you for working within our bureaucratic system as quickly as you could with your staff. Thank you very much for that. But I would like to have some feedback from your organization, probably you, as to what we can do as the Board of County Commissioners to alleviate some of that bureaucratic process that is in place, that maybe we could streamline somehow, recognizing you've done a good job here, but for the future situation that might develop, and hopefully never does, but might, that we could respond to the citizens' needs even faster than what you were able to do working within the bureaucratic process.
Yes, I'm sorry. You're totally right on. I was looking at the comprehensive plan amendment docket to try and see if I could find the number. I don't have it right in front of me.
That's fine.
But that's where the rules change. And we've talked about bringing forward the item that releases people having to do hearings examiners. So that would shorten the timeline quite a bit. Once I get that number, I'll send it over to you. But we're working on it. So, and you're right. We have to work within the rules of the game, and then the board has an opportunity to change those rules. Okay, and so the project review timeline is working within the current rules, and the comprehensive plan amendment that we have coming forward is to help change those rules. So the power is yours, Commissioner.
Good. Thank you, Josh, very much. Anything, Ty? No. Okay. That takes us to number 2, the CRF. Thank you, Josh. The CRF funds update.
Yeah, Commissioners, the attempt to this first briefing is, as you may recall, when you made allocations for the coronavirus funding, staff committed to come back every so often to give you a status of the expenditure of the allocations that you made, both external and external. So this is again a high-level overview status of that, and Jenica is going to provide you with all that information that you're looking for.
Welcome,
Yes.
Jenica.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Romero. So I have, like he had said, some high-level updates about where we're at with the CRF funds. Spending to date, offices and departments continue to submit reimbursement requests for the $2.9 million that was set aside to cover COVID costs between March 1st and May 31st. Currently, we're at 2.1 million, and again, this is still in process. For the IT spend down, IT has purchased upwards of 457,000 from the original 725,000. Currently, IT has received much of the purchased hardware and will have a count by the end of this week. One of the larger projects that was allocated was the offsite courtroom for 1.1 million. We have a potential site that's being looked at on Chandler Court that's very close to campus. If we're able to successfully negotiate a 2-year lease and tenant improvements, the space will accommodate large jury trials for Superior Court. Normally, Superior Court holds 3 or 4 jury trials each week. Our current space on the courthouse campus only allows for 1. There will also be a courtroom for District Court, Together, the additional courtroom will help address the backlog in courts and achieve appropriate social distancing. The joint project will help keep operating costs down. To make and pay for the necessary improvements by October 31st, we'll need to sign a lease by the end of this month. And Robin, I didn't know if there was any additional discussion you wanted on the offsite courtroom? No, okay.
I do.
Okay.
And this is, we're making just about every single effort to accommodate the needs of the courts and just the conditions of this emergency put us in a very difficult situation. As you know, the CRF funding needs to be spent by October 31st. As Jenica stated, we need to find a lease, and hopefully we can get to the point to have all the tenant improvements meeting that expenditure deadline. However, there is going to be some operational cost coming into 2021, and that will be a lease payment of that. They will not be covered by the CRF funding. So that is something I'd like to bring to your attention, because this is something that perhaps the board needs to address moving forward into 2021. And at this point, what we see is perhaps about $50,000 a month that is going to be costing, it's going to be costing the county to continue to provide those services in 2021 at least. So although we're moving forward based on the direction the board provided, we're working with the courts to provide the additional space because certainly they need it. But again, I just want to make sure that you are tracking there is going to be additional costs that we need to address on the 21-22 budget.
Commissioner Edwards.
Is there any reason that we couldn't have a long-term lease on that property and pay for it well before October 31st?
My understanding is we cannot upfront lease payments with the coronavirus release fund.
Well, I'm not going to call it an upfront. I'm just going to call it a normal business practice of a long-term lease and pay for it when we make the lease.
That's what I call upfront.
I know that's what you call it, but I call that as a bureaucratic roadblock that I think we can take a shot at paying for it now. Isn't that the way we do business? If we lease a building for a long-term lease, don't we pay it when we start the lease?
No, we pay monthly, and Robin can probably clarify on that.
Well, I'd like to stretch the rules some if we could.
Go ahead, Robin.
So we've had that reviewed. We wanted to do that very thing, but we had the rules and the guidance from the U.S. Treasury reviewed by our internal auditor, who has told us that we cannot do that because it is a prepayment, and we don't have the ability to do that. So no, we cannot pay for more than a month at a time.
And this is going to be critical. And next week, we're going to be bringing with a larger conversation with the board, the certification process that the county needs to go through before we send any type of request for reimbursement from Commerce from the coronavirus. Because it's two elements. The internal auditor is the one who provides guidance. If the internal auditor is providing guidance against it, you have delegated to me to sign the certification to send the request for reimbursement. And I will not be able to sign the certification if the internal auditor tells me otherwise. So, and again, and that's how we have everybody who perhaps give us the perspective on the requirements. So it's more just about, with all due respect, stretching the rules. It's more about with the liability the county may have, and also the personal liability that I may have if I go against a recommendation by the internal auditor.
Okay. Commissioner Menser, yeah, go ahead.
So given that we can't upfront pay the lease, how does that then, how does the 1.1 million guesstimation that we use at the beginning shake out? Are we going to need a lot less than that because we were hoping to be able to prepay a 2-year lease, or are we still going to need all of that money plus the $50,000 a month that Ramiro was describing?
So that's one of the things we're working on right now is one of the things that we will be able to prepay, if you will, is all of the renovation costs for the building that we're going to lease. Instead of building those renovation costs into the ongoing lease, we're just going to pay them right up front. So we're also going to purchase all of the furniture, fixtures, equipment that we need for that building to operate a court or 2 courts. And there are a lot of other issues that we need to address. So how much of the money is going to be spent by October 31st is one of the things we're working on refining right now. It's possible that some will be left, but not a lot.
So
Go ahead, Guy.
stopgap, this is a follow-up, sorry. Is this more of a stopgap arrangement, or is the vision that we could continue to use these courtrooms to meet our needs long-term if we're paying for hard improvements? I guess what's the final product going to look like? Is it a long-term thing, or are we just buying cubicle walls and things like that that are just going to be slid around in order to create a makeshift courtroom just to get through coronavirus?
So all of the stakeholders have been meeting regularly and expressing what the needs are. And what we've heard very clearly from all of the participants is that a makeshift courtroom will not do, even for short-term use. So these are not just cubicle walls that are going up. We're actually doing hard walls. We're knocking out a few walls to create large enough spaces for jury selection of large jury pools. And there's some hard construction going on here. However, this is not meant to be a long-term solution to court needs on the courthouse. It's meant to be a response for the coronavirus and the need to social distance to address the health needs of the county. Otherwise, we would not be able to use this money. So we're negotiating a short-term lease, short-term as in 2 years or less, with clauses that would allow us to get out of the lease on short notice if we had to. But once we get down the road a bit, we may consider if it would fit a longer term solution. But this is a response to the pandemic.
Any other follow-up, Ty? Okay, Gary, did you have something to say?
I did. Who is our internal auditor?
Brandon Weber.
So that's a county employee?
He is.
And have we brought this up with Commerce to see, I mean, everybody's got an opinion about everything. I would like to push this a little more, to use this as an example of just what you said, that this is a direct cost incurred because of this virus. And I just wonder if Commerce would not give us an exemption moving forward on this. And there must be other jurisdictions in this state that are faced with the same problem. And maybe we could get them together, I don't know, get a legal opinion from somebody. But
we did talk to Commerce. We also raised this with WASAC and NACO. It's not a Commerce rule, it's a Treasury rule from the United States Treasurer, and it is part of the Treasury guidance. So it's not something that Commerce could exempt us from.
what about contacting our state senators and let them look into this for us, especially if it's going to be affecting other jurisdictions in a similar way?
Many jurisdictions are addressing the needs for their courts.
Okay, is the Association of Counties looking at possibly getting a hold of our legislative representatives at the national level and see what they can do?
I don't know if they're doing it at the national level. I know they're working with the legislators locally regarding some of these things, as well as getting Congress to release that 240 million that they're hanging on to as well. So they're working on it from different angles, but I don't know if they're working with the national. I would imagine they are. Just presume. I haven't heard that.
But what they cannot do, our state representatives would not be able to give us relief from federal rules. That's as far as prepaying. I'm assuming Commissioner Edwards is continuing to talk about the prepayment.
Restriction, yes.
Right.
I think so.
Right. So that would have to be a federal ruling, and we are bound when we use this money to follow 2 CFR 200. Those are the rules around using federal funds. It's federal law. And that is one of the things that Brandon took a look at, and part of why we are restricted to not being able to prepay the lease.
I don't think it's asking too much. Maybe that the board write a letter to its congressional delegation, the Senate and the House of Representatives, explaining this problem in just a very short letter form, that this seems to be a mistake that should be overcome. I mean, especially, it's not going to take that much. I'd be willing to sign a letter. I don't know if my seatmates would be willing to sign a letter to our congressional delegation to ask them to review this.
I think that something that could be effective is a letter to our senators, Cantwell and
Murray.
yes, thank you, Senator Murray, urging them to pass the next federal relief bill, which should include, or hopefully will include, funding for local jurisdictions that would go beyond December 31st and address our needs. That's what we need.
Well, I would include that.
Hey, Gary, please let her finish.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
we
Robin.
could ask them to also amend the CARES Act to allow for the money to be spent for a longer period. That would also be helpful, but I truly believe that we will spend the money that we currently have. We need additional support from the federal government. And there is a bill that is rumored to be moving. So we need to work with NACO. We need to work with our delegation to the US Senate. A bill has passed the House. We need to get one past the Senate.
Thank you for yielding, Gary. Go ahead, finish up.
No, I mean, that's all part and parcel of everything that I'm talking about to get this thing going. But let's send a letter at least to our congressional delegation that, hey, this is a problem that's kind of like a dumb problem. I mean, we're faced with the issue, going to be faced with it for a year, or however long this is going to last. I don't think it's asking too much to ask them to intervene on our behalf, and probably other jurisdictions around the state as well.
So, Romero, is that something you can put together, a letter?
I'll work with Jenica on that one.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you, Jenica.
No problem. I have a couple more updates on the external allocations. And so with the EDC, the subrecipient contract has been signed. And so they're ready to launch their micro business grant program and their childcare grants this week. The micro business stand-up grant is offered as a small cash infusion to serve as a helping hand to small businesses attempting to reopen or remain open. They estimate the grants will serve 900 Thurston County small businesses. The PPE purchase and distribution program is up and running. I believe Commissioner Menser was able to go and see a little of that in person. Also, the Thurston Child Care Grant Program offers acute funding support to child care providers attempting to reopen or remain open as they're operating under considerably different circumstances and requirements. The grant amount will correlate to the license capacity and range from $760 to $15,200. In total, there's currently $500,000 available in the Child Care Grant Fund, and that is with other jurisdictions' funds as well. And the United Way, we are finalizing details in their contract, which should be executed shortly for the food and housing security programs. Additionally, the United Way will be administering the $30,000 utility fund that was passed for public works. And so we are currently finalizing those details for these programs. Do you have any questions on the external updates?
Ty?
Jenica, my concern is about how we get the word out to the businesses that may be eligible. We had a lot of businesses. I understood of the state grant program a couple months back, it was like hundreds of applicants and I think 35 were granted. I have friends and colleagues that run bars and music venues downtown Olympia who have been shuttered, and they're not going to make it much longer. So they're not. I just want to make sure we're not just reaching back out to people that receive prior grants or whatnot. That we do a really broad-based, and I'll try to get the word out too. If you can maybe forward me an email that kind of with the specific dates and the links to the application, all the nitty-gritty details, because I get bombarded with folks, and I don't necessarily have all the details at my fingertips. I just tell them to go to Thurston Strong basically and track it. And I know that's been a really good portal for information, but I just want to make sure that we, if you look, now that this has been going for months, and if you look, I mean, some businesses are doing better than ever. Some were able to reopen in a fairly short period of time. Others are still hamstrung at 50% capacity. And then there's other ones that are still not able to operate. I mean, literally musicians and artists and things like that, like they're not even allowed to do their job at this point. So I don't know what flexibility there are for local musicians, festival owners, music venues, things like that. It's just one sub area that I'm aware of where they've been unable to operate 100%. They should get the highest priority for these grants. I don't know if that's possible, but I at least want them to know about it and apply for it and get their fair shot at it. So I'm not sure how we do that, but whatever creative ways you can think of to get the word through the community, I appreciate it.
Sure, I'll definitely send you that. And we're also working with our partners to spread the word at the Chamber, Olympia Downtown Association, and the BCB. All of these different organizations will help spread the word. The official announcement will be released on Wednesday, but I'll forward you the information before that.
Oh, very good. Jenica, thank you very much. Do you have anything more?
I just want to recognize that there's so many staff that are putting a tremendous amount of work into this, and I specifically want to thank Joe Wolf and Brandon Weber, who have been just invaluable to the CRF team. But that's all.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. That takes us to number 3, Keep Washington Working Act.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. I think this is just the beginning, perhaps, of a conversation, and Elizabeth is here to participate on this. Back in 2019, the state legislature passed a substitute Senate Bill 5497, and this is related to the Keep Washington Working Act, which in so many terms remains, where it states that Washington remains a place where the rights and dignity of all residents are maintained and protected in order to keep Washington working. Also, the legislature mandated the Office of the Attorney General, AGO, to publish model policies to assist local and state entities in the implementation of the Keep Washington Working Act. Specifically, the Keep Washington Working Act requires the Attorney General's office to publish model policies for a number of public entities, including Washington courthouses, for limiting immigration enforcement to the fullest extension possible, consistent with federal and state law, to ensure courthouses remain accessible to all Washington residents, regardless of immigration or citizen status. And I have attached in your packet is what the Attorney General's office issued on May 2020, which is the mandated by the legislature related to the model policies the AGO has already issued on this particular legislation. So on the front page of this packet is what Elizabeth has put together. And at this point, I will let her take it on.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elizabeth Petrich, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. This model policies that was adopted by the AG's office was required by the legislature when they passed Keep Washington Working. The purpose of bringing it before you today is we have a requirement under the statute to implement either our own policies or adopt the model policies. And what we currently have in place is something that was put in place when this legislation first came out, and it's just two brief policies, one from the corrections section of the Sheriff's Office relating to how they're going to comply with Keep Washington Working Act when inmates are of immigrant status. And then the courts have a very limited policy basically dealing with their security officers. But the model policies encompass more than that. And I think it's prudent that what the recommendation in the model policies is that the Board of County Commissioners, together with the judicial officers of the courts, convene some sort of committee or work group to work together to make sure that we have adequate policies in place, whether they're the AGO policies or whether we go back and flesh out our own policies a little bit more. And the reason the Board of County Commissioners are involved is because these policies apply to court facilities and courthouse campus grounds. And because the board has a role in providing buildings and services in those buildings and has control of those buildings to some extent, it was recommended that the board also be a player in developing these policies. So the recommendation, I think that's before you, at least from my perspective, is that a work committee be created to work together to look at these rules to make sure that we are in compliance, or if we want to adopt the model rules. In addition, the model rules also provide recommendations for training of personnel that will be involved in implementing these policies. So the outline I provided is just a big picture sketch of all the different things in the AG's recommendation.
So Elizabeth, just real quick, you mentioned corrections and how this might apply, the model policies might apply to our corrections. Is that in model policies section 3, B, C, and D, access to the courthouse, civil arrest, and gathering information related to immigration and citizen status? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Yes, because we have inmates and there's lots of information collected, and the idea is to not collect immigration status information if we can help it.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I thought that was like one of the contentious issues on both sides, because I believe the sheriff or law enforcement is mandated to find out the immigration, maybe not the immigration status, but the national citizen status, because they have to report to embassies and such.
Right, that's what would be under CD, consular notification requirements.
Right.
And there are certain requirements, and there are certain practices in place in the corrections department right now. It's just a matter of whether they're sufficient enough.
Okay, good, thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We're talking about policies consistent. Is everything proposed here consistent with federal, state, and local laws?
Yes, the model policies specifically require that we are consistent with applicable federal laws. So to the extent
How does
I
that
think,
work if we're kind of at odds?
Page 10.
Pardon?
Page 10 of the report.
Okay.
so it is, it's a interplay between Keep Washington Work and the federal laws. So one of the laws that come up is a section 1373. Don't have the code in front of me, but it requires, it prohibits anybody from, we cannot prohibit county staff from sharing information, certain information with federal agencies on immigration status. But there's also other pieces of Keep Washington Working, which we are allowed to do, which is not inconsistent with federal rule. So it's very important to make sure that our policies are not only consistent with the Keep Washington Work Act, but also with applicable federal rules.
So do you have anything, Ty?
I did, but I've forgotten. I mean, one of the questions I had, one of the issues was the consular issue. There was I wanted to point out that in the original act last year, that previous thing that had been kind of a sticking point was basically legislated out. They basically said, that's no longer an issue. You've got to do it the way we're telling you to do it. And then my other question was just kind of, if you look at the language in the introductory sections of this guidance, it talks about jurisdictions should implement an expeditious review process of this publication such that adoption of the model policies and guidance may be initiated immediately. And it's already been 2 months. I brought this forward because a citizen group brought it to me, and I was embarrassed not to have seen it. And then I found out that John Tunheim didn't know about it. Patrick O'Connor didn't know about it. Judge Buckley didn't know about it. Judge Price didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it. Elizabeth didn't know about it. Ramiro didn't know about it. None of us knew anything about this, which the state is telling us we're supposed, this guidance was a long time in coming. We were supposed to adopt, and we did adopt interim policies to get these balls rolling, so to speak, last year. And now so I'm just wondering, what is the channel of information whereby somebody should have seen this and caught it? We're now 2 months behind where we should have been and could have been. And I'm just wondering who should have seen this? Where did this come out? How did the state disseminate this? And who's in charge of kind of tracking that?
Is that a question for me?
I don't know if that's a question.
But it's twofold. How did we not find it? But how did the Attorney General, Bob Ferguson, not get it everywhere, or did?
Right.
Or
I have to say, and I think I can't say that I didn't see this, because I do believe I did see an email from WAPA, Washington Association of Prosecuting Attorneys, when this was released back in May. And given it's not an excuse, but I'm just sharing what happened for me with the COVID issues that were coming in every day. I didn't make this a priority to look at.
So where do we go from here then, Elizabeth? You suggested we're forming a committee then to look at this and get the best practice and bring it forward? Or
I do think we need to, I do recommend that some sort of work group be started, and it would involve someone from the BoCC, someone from the courts for sure, as a starting point, because it's really about the courthouse, and it's really about preventing courthouse arrests. It's the big picture of what this is about. So those are two fundamental players. One, and then you would probably want the sheriff's office as well, because they play a role. And then once that small group gets together, you don't want to pull together like a dozen people. That's not necessary, I don't think, because it would get so cumbersome. But just to come together and say, okay, we need to look at this. Do we have enough already? I think we need to supplement a little bit, just from what I can tell. But that would be the first step, is to get somebody from the court, somebody from BoCC, someone from the sheriff's office, and obviously our office would be involved to help facilitate any policy drafting.
Okay. Ramiro?
So how about if Elizabeth and I will have a conversation to see who could probably serve in this committee, and then send an email request as to how we can start forming this committee as soon as possible.
I'm okay with that, yep. Gary, if you can do it real quick, please, short and concise, thank you.
Okay, are we going to have any public input in reviewing what we may or may not do on this? Is there gonna be an ordinance change or some kind of a hearing where the public gets to weigh in on this?
I think that's something that you can totally do.
Yep. So we can talk about incorporating that, because we have the discretion to do that.
You got 3 minutes to finish the agenda, sir.
Yep. All right, Elizabeth, thank you very much. The next one should only take a minute, and that's the clerk of the board position placement.
Yeah, this is, and again, I know I'm going to spend too much time in here, but this is a result of the old policies that we have in place related to HR. I'm working with HRs to change some of that, provide some flexibility. And one of the old policies, the county manager cannot place this promotion that we promoted to the new clerk of the office to a step 6 of the classification. So my request for the board is to give me authorization to place Amy on the step 6 of the clerk of the board classification.
There you go, thumbs up from me.
What is the reason why, I mean, can you explain what I'm sorry, everything's taking a long time today, but
yeah.
What is the justification for your limitation of your ability to do what you're asking us now to authorize you to do?
Because under the current, we need to bring this position up to 5% of the previous classification. And that is the ceiling that I'm dealing with. However, I'm planning to do this position 2 roles, because I'm not planning to backfill the front office position at this point. So I'm asking to do 2 jobs, and I don't think it's fair, from what I'm seeing, to just bring it up to the 5% ceiling that I have. And that's what I'm requesting the board to give me authorization to go step 6.
Combining 2 full-time jobs.
I'm good with it.
Is this just in this, like, on this temporary one-off situation?
Well, and eventually we're going to be bringing a series of policies related to HR, because we need to address all this in a larger context. So I'm working on that in a parallel. But this is an action that I'm requesting for you to take.
Okay, do you just thumbs up, or do you do something?
Yeah, thank you. I see. I think I have. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay. Hiring exceptions, and that continues on to the second page too, with CPED.
Well, this is a series of positions that the last time you reviewed some of those requests, I promised that I will bring those in a bundle, and hopefully every 4 weeks, as opposed to piecemeal, as Commissioner Menser suggested not to do. So these positions are related to what we call the hiring chill. And those positions, they have become vacant since you last took an action, and then the 90-day clock start ticking. So all those positions have become vacant since then. Some, they have been vacant since June 2019, all the way to July 1st, I believe, the last one. And each one of those are requesting to go ahead and authorize to continue the recruitment process. If you keep that in mind, the 1 month they have become vacant for the most part, plus the recruitment process that we're going to go through, most likely go beyond the 90-day hiring chill, which that was the intent, to have salary savings, to have vacant positions for those 90 days. So I think by you considering approving moving forward in those positions, we'll still achieve the objective of the 90-day salary savings with the hiring chill.
So I have a question of my seatmates. Would you like to have more time to go through position by position with explanation and description and such, and the need?
I have a question on that.
Because my question is for Romero, if we just don't, in one fell swoop, give you a thumbs up, Do we have room on the agenda for Thursday morning, the commissioners check-in?
I have a very high item. It related to the lead grant on Thursday, and I really don't know how long that is going to take. But if you like to delay this to next week, I'm okay with that. I mean,
Okay.
1 week will not have an impact.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm concerned, going back to the budget proposal that we cut the current expense budget by 2%. Are we in fact in a situation that we need to make more adjustments through attrition or not? So I'm still trying to figure out, is the sky falling or not? And are we planning for 2021 or not? And what about attrition? So I think this is a bigger topic than to figure out right now, but a week.
All right.
If we get it on the agenda, I'd like to talk about it more.
So Commissioner Menser, do you have anything? Go ahead.
Well, I would give a thumbs up today to solid waste manager, only because I know that there's a very specialized and difficult recruiting process for that type of position. I'm not inclined to support lifting the chill for any of the other positions. If somebody wants to make a special case, then I guess we'll need time for that. But if you're asking me today, I would deny all of them other than the solid waste manager.
Okay, I'll give you a second on that, sir.
Let's bring this back to next week, Romero, okay?
Well, what about the solid waste?
I think you just got 2 thumbs up on the solid waste, Commissioner.
Okay, 3 for solid waste. But then bring the rest of these next week.
Yep.
And do you have any public testimony with which to follow up?
No, sir. I already did.
All right. Well, then we're adjourning this agenda setting work session. Thank you all for joining in. And now we're going to jump onto a Zoom.